Uh, here we go again.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, day
Talk,
after
talk to me,
Thanksgiving.
Goose.
Day after Thanksgiving. I think we'll have to. I think it's going to take me a week to understand what just happened, and then I'll be able to give a better synopsis.
Well, as a licensed therapist, I'm here for you, and let's start by talking about your mother, so we can really get our heads around what happened yesterday on Thanksgiving.
Oh man, yeah. It's Thanksgiving is like this great little experiment where uh, as a in 2022, like our generation is so much different than our parents, right? And because everything's just moving so fast. But yeah, it's interesting to see like what a bubble we put ourselves in, and then we expose ourselves to like where we came from. You're like, oh wow, that's an interesting gap there.
It's like a measuring device. It's like that Mark Twain quote that I really like, where he talks about how his tailor was the only sensible person he ever met because he took my measurements new every time I met him, whereas everyone else kept using the old measurements.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think with parents and anyone who knew you when they were an adult and you were a kid, to them you're still that kid basically.
Well, I think even with siblings, like the other kids, well,
Mm.
especially in my case, because I left when I was 18 and I had four younger siblings, and I didn't spend a lot of time with them since then. So like I'm 41 and I can tell they still treat me as if I was 17.
Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends how close you are, but for sure your parents think of you still as a little kid. So they're measuring you up against or comparing you to something that is long long gone. And like you said, the speed is so fast now with which change can occur. Not it doesn't always occur, but it can go super quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there any specific thing that stuck out to you about this?
I just realized like how much it's like the addiction to conflict is what it seems like. But I think that's I
You
think
have
that
an addiction to conflict.
well, I started wondering about that. I was like, well, this is how you turn Thanksgiving dinner into a personal development tool. Is throughout the well, I had two Thanksgivings. It's like, okay, I'm being judgmental about this. How do I do the same thing? It may not be as prominent, but it's there,
Mm.
and especially with family because yeah, you're around that. It's definitely in there. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, oh wow, yeah, I kind of do the same thing in a different way, maybe not as prominent, but yeah, I could see where I could clean that up.
Yeah, if you can really just listen, especially with parents, you notice where some of your mannerisms might come from too.
Hmm.
I notice that when I am really listening to my brother, I'll hear him say things and I'll be like, "Oh, that mannerism is something that one of my parents used to say." Like I know
Hmm.
exactly where that came from. It's the same tone, it's the same inflection, and it's a carbon copy of the previous one, basically. It's very funny.
Oh yeah, my little brother is when I hang out with him, it's just like one dadism after another. He's it's because my dad owned his own construction company, my brother owned his own moving company, and then the way that my brother interacts with and treats his employees and the way he talks about his employees is like, oh wow, this is very familiar. This is incredibly
Mm,
familiar, and so that's really curious. The point you were making earlier with your parents are judging you basically based on from the day you were born until now, and
right.
they're not. That's the beauty of making new friends is these people see you only for what you are right now, which is the most accurate perspective that someone can hold. They may not have as much information, but they know who you are right now, and they're not bringing all the past into it.
Well, what I love about that, and I tell people this all the time, when I meet somebody new, part of the fun is going to make me sound like a extreme narcissist. The one of the best parts about meeting someone else is I get to learn what I think right now because I don't always talk to myself, right? So you meet somebody new, you get into a conversation, things are flowing back and forth, and maybe you're listening to them, maybe you're not, but you'll notice that you start to say a few things. And I notice when I'm having a conversation with someone brand new, I'll there'll be a topic, I'll go, yeah, but yada yada yada. Atheism and Catholicism are both based on faith, for example. And I'll say something and I'll be like, "Oh, so that's what I think." You know what I mean?
I
I'll
do
be
know
like,
what you
"Oh,
mean.
that's what I think right now. How cool is this? I met this new person. They don't have anything to base it off of before. I'm not trying to fulfill some sort of um expected value from prior with this person.
Hmm.
I'm just this is where I'm at right now, and so I go, "Oh, that's what I think right now. How
Hmm.
neat."
Hmm.
So I really like it for that.
Yeah, we had dinner with my brother-in-law was there, who I really enjoy hanging out with, and yeah, it was like he started asking me questions, and we got in the conversation. I started sharing, and I was like, oh wow, I had a similar experience where I took all these different things I had been thinking about. I'd say there was three or four different things I had been thinking about, and then I melded them into one single, like how by taking all this different information, how I make sense of this one aspect of life. And
Mm.
he's like, oh wow, that's really amazing. I go, yeah, like that's the first time I've put all those pieces together myself. So
I was surprised too.
yeah, yeah, I was like, man, I'm like my the shit that I'm full of is fucking cool. So
I think that's one of the reasons it's so valuable to interact with different people. They'll give you I think of it like we're uncut gems, and every person you meet, you can add another facet to yourself. And there are all these different angles, and you can't get it just talking to the same person over and over and over and over again. It's really helpful to get those different angles or different perspectives to help you realize that um, multifaceted nature. I feel like it's all gem analogies right now, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah, I think back to my like 20s and early 30s where mostly my 20s and then it just carried over into my 30s. It's like my
Mm.
30s is where I was cleaning up my 20s basically. And that's a new thing for me right now. I'm like, oh yeah, just now realizing that my 30s was just all about cleaning up the 20s.
I was just sweeping up the
Just,
fucking debris from my 20s. I love it.
but the but in my 20s, what I realized when I got to my mid 30s is I had surrounded myself with people who said yes. Like I met very little resistance from the business partners I had, the romantic relationships I had, a lot of my friendships. I would say that some of my friendships is what helped shift that. I went from people who were agreeable to people who were disagreeable, and then witnessing the
Mm.
growth in myself. And now, yeah, if I'm in a room where I'm finding agreement with me all the time, it's time to find a new room because, as you were saying, that we keep polishing one side of that gem and neglecting the other side. When you look through it in a piece of light, through some light, it's still not going to be anywhere where it could be. You do need to be polishing it, you know,
Yep.
360 times 360.
Mm. Yeah, and it's more painful because you have if you're attached to your beliefs, right? Whatever attachment you have to your beliefs is proportional to the pain you will feel when those beliefs are shattered. So it's okay to think a certain way, but not get too attached to that being the end all be all. Because one thing I've noticed is I change my mind about a lot of stuff. There are some things I don't really change my mind about, but most things I think differently now than I did 10 years ago. A lot of things I think differently than I did 1 year ago. so so like if history is any indicator of the confidence I should have in what I believe today.
Yeah, yeah. I have
I
people ask me,
sh-
they're like, "What do you believe about this?" I'm like, "Wow, I'm not going to tell you what I believe about it. I'll share my thoughts on it, or
yeah.
what I imagine to be true." There's one of the tricks that I've learned over the years to loosen up the the grip, the attachment to a thought. Because that's what a belief is an attachment to a thought. It's like, oh, I have this phrase, and so our ability, like my ability, I'll speak for myself, to see that's just that right there. What I did right there is a way of loosening up my grip on what I believe to be true, because I'm admitting it's only for me. This is my experience. I'm not projecting it out onto the world. And but there's little things that you can do that will loosen up the mind's grip on the 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 belief that something, that a thought is true. And one is just to start, instead of saying I think, I feel like, or any of these,
Mm,
a lot of these really, anyone's going to be able to sit and go, oh, there is a very common phrase that precedes when I share a belief where I feel very justified in that belief. And that phrase will be there. And so my invitation is that you can loosen up the grip a bit by uh, starting off with I imagine. I imagine, like, when I had some friends over last night. I made the classic. Well, we'll call it whatever. The I mixed friends and family in for a Thanksgiving dinner yesterday,
cool.
and you know there was there was a point in the evening where it's like, all right, let's just pull out all the conspiracy theories, and
Now we're talking. Lay
yeah,
it on me.
yeah, and so
Who shot JFK?
oh, we didn't get to that one. We didn't get to that one. But the
That one's juicy.
yeah, there was this what's interesting is in a group dynamic where there's a lot of different perspectives, right? There's some people who, may think that they fall into the camp of like conspiracy theorists or idiots or whatever, and some people are like, you know, dedicated that some conspiracy theory is a conspiracy truth, and all these things. And so it was interesting to traverse those waters, and then also it's like I had to continually make note for people, like remind them that these are theories. Like people, it's like almost as if people forget that the word theory is what comes after the conspiracy part. It's like these aren't. This isn't. This isn't a claim of truth. This isn't a claim of like this. I'm not even claiming that I believe this. This is just this is a theory. This, when we look at the data, we could create a narrative. We could connect these dots in this fashion and get this information. What I find most people do is, uh, this is what's happening most of the time, is there's a cherry picking of the data to create a narrative, which is what happens with mainstream narratives. But the same thing happens with conspiracy narratives. Is there's a cherry picking of the data to tell the story that person wants to be true.
and individual narratives. I mean, we do the same thing with our own life. We
Absolutely.
cherry pick like, "Oh, this is what happened, and I'm like a good guy." No one's the bad guy. No one ever is like, "God, I'm the bad guy." It's always just cherry picking what happened. But it's so unlikely to have a an intelligent discourse about any topic like that because there's usually going to be a lack of semantic precision. There's often going to be a huge disconnect between what the claim is and what the confidence level is. And when you start um, trying to deduce things scientifically, there's usually a confidence level in the claim that's being made. We can say with 95% confidence or 50% confidence, but most of this stuff is just strictly it's just mental masturbation to look smart ultimately because the conviction level is typically nothing, and you can tell based on how someone's willing to bet, right? And that's why, kind of circling back, because I thought of this earlier too, when you have a belief, there's going to be a level of conviction to that belief.
Yeah.
um, and if you if you don't have a strong enough belief, um, no action will take place either. So it's really important to, let's say, believe that there is some chance that an endeavor of yours will succeed. Like, let's say, it was just Thanksgiving. Let's say, Christopher Columbus, funny name. That's a real Spanish name, isn't it?
Was he Italian or
Colum.
Spanish?
I thought it was Cristobal Colon. I thought he was Spanish guy.
I,
Um,
I think I
I
don't
might I
remember
might be wrong.
exactly. Yeah,
I might be wrong, but let's
I
just
think he was
say
shop. I think he was shopping around different kings and queens. I don't
no
know.
question. Um, but suppose he's trying to tell people about this voyage, and he's like, I imagine that there might be something over there. So abandon your families and get on this boat for 3 months, and we'll see what happens. And if he presented it that way, you might have a few insane guys who are like, "Yeah, that's fine," but even he himself wouldn't go on a voyage like that unless there was some belief that it would succeed. So uh, it's important to recognize that belief is on a spectrum, just like most things. So your level of conviction that something will occur is going to be different. And that's why people hedge their bets when it comes to all types of things, like investing, for example. Very few people put all their money in one company. Like, you don't put all your eggs in one basket, kind of thing. But if a person did, you could be damn sure that they had an extremely high level of conviction in the belief they held that that was the best place to put their energy, attention, resources, etc.
Yeah, I met a guy this past summer at a party, and we were talking about what people do for work and investments and all this. He goes, "Oh, I just 100% Tesla, like all in on Tesla." Like, okay, so nothing else. He's like, "Yep, just Tesla. Just just got stock there, and then I think worked as a consultant for Tesla or something like that. On top of that, yeah, 100% convict. Like trying to convince that guy that like that might be a bad idea. It's just not going to happen, even though it's just a prediction of what's going to about the future.
Yeah, and so far, because enough people guess, some people are going to be right about what happens next. It's like the monkeys on typewriters. If you have enough, you'll eventually write Shakespeare. Enough people are guessing. Like, there are people out there right now who are like all in on the housing market. There are people who are all in on pork. There are people who are all in on wood pellets, because they believe that's, and maybe they just understand it better. And they can't all be right.
Yeah, Yeah. Right. I want to rewind back a little bit to the beginning of the conversation. We're talking about parents
Mm.
and how the parents view us as children a lot of times still. Is I cracked the code with my mom to where that isn't necessarily as true anymore. And that was a conversation where I basically told her I intentionally had this conversation, which was you know, everything that ever anything good that ever happened to me is because of you and dad, and you guys did such a great job, like just a lot of praise around what a great job they did. And then followed that up with, and yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes, like basically taking the blame and responsibility for anything negative that happened in my life. And then and just saying, yeah, thank you. And your job as a parent is done. And so I find that conversation conducted in that order, because I've advised other people to do the same thing. It cuts that tether with the parent in a way that they can now
Mm.
see you as an adult, and then also so that you can see them as just another human being.
Wow, yeah, you did that way nicer than I did.
I want to hear your method. Yours sounds like it might be more entertaining.
No, it was more like an ultimatum. Like I won't continue to have a relationship with you like this.
Hmm.
And like here are the new parameters. I
Yeah.
wasn't nice about it at all. Also, I was like early 20s.
Yeah.
So I was a bit of a prick in general.
Yeah. This was part of my
But
30s cleanup. So,
yeah, but it was a noticeable shift in the dynamic after that. For me, it was pretty different though. Anyway, I always kind of felt like they were roommates, even growing up.
yeah.
I didn't really I didn't respect their authority because they didn't really have any.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was already kind of a shifted
Would you say they
relationship.
lack boundaries
Uh,
or setting boundaries with the kids?
they lacked most everything. Uh, it was just
What's your parents'
it
email?
was
I'm going to send them the show.
I'm sure they would laugh at me. Now they would. It's yeah, it was evident to me that whatever they were doing was not an effective strategy. That's all. Not bad, not good, just not very effective
Yeah.
for happiness, health, wealth, all that shit. I was like, this is not what I would like to do.
So, how was your Thanksgiving? You do anything amazing?
Yeah, I went up to my mom's house. It was really nice. I laid out my best off-color jokes because she's great because she pretends to like be like really outraged about certain things, and oh, that's offensive and you shouldn't say those things. So if I can say something that is like really provocative and make them laugh, it really makes me laugh even harder because I'm like, oh, I got you. You thought that was funny. You're not supposed to laugh at that, but you did. And my brother was there with his family, and he has got a filthy sense of humor also. So I just try to make him laugh so hard that he like can barely breathe, and it's really fun. We had a great time. We were there for about 3 hours, which is perfect. That's about as long as I want to leave the puppies at home on their own. It's actually longer than
This
I want
is
to.
this is why puppies are so such a great tool. It's like I gotta go home. I can't
I
hang out
gotta
anymore.
go. I gotta go hang with the puppies. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, but it was perfect. It was great. We talked a little bit about religion, and she's a fresh atheist and very proud of it.
Your mom?
And yeah, mainly because someone intelligent someone who she believes is intelligent gave her praise for having that belief.
Oh.
That's what I think, at least, right? Maybe she thinks differently. And to me, it's like I was saying in the beginning, and I've mentioned this to a few different people because I find it funny that someone could be certain that there's zero gods, just as much as for someone to be certain that there's one or more, because it's the same. It's the same thing. You don't really have anything objective in your experience to make you believe that thing. And it's not wrong to have a belief, but I think the similarity and the juxtaposition of those is both being faith-based groups is very funny to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we already talked about religion, so we should just get into any politics in the Thanksgiving.
No politics this Thanksgiving. Um,
You guys, anyone check anyone's vaccination status?
no, no. My brother and his wife and kids also did not get the new experiment. I'm pretty sure my mom and her husband did, and that's we didn't actually talk about it, but uh, I was glad my brother arrived at that um, idea, especially because his wife was pregnant at the time.
Mm.
Also, I mean,
Hmm.
there's all kinds of wackadoodle stuff there, but I'm sure in 75 years when they show us the results from the experiments, we'll all be not surprised at all. Like I don't know, man. Some stuff just seems so obvious. It's like the JFK thing. Yeah, we misplaced his brain. Whoops, sorry. What? Huh? You misplaced it? This isn't like a fucking magazine in the lobby. This is the brain of a recently killed president. You would think they would keep better track of that shit. But no, not really. So, I mean, I talk politics with very few people, but I still think the biggest bummer is that people's attention and awareness is almost always swarming around the same unimportant thing, and it changes from time to time. Uh, George Floyd, coronavirus, Ukraine, and it's like this waving up and down. And you got the red T-shirts and the blue T-shirts, because God forbid you have more colors than that. And they think opposite about these few things, but everyone's always talking about the same thing, and it's still critically unimportant because the whole point of governance is just to make sure the marketplace is safe, and so people can figure it out, and that's how you get the most personal fulfillment, because that way you get to be a candlestick maker or a baker or whatever, or a shepherd or something like that. And everybody's free to like trade that stuff around, and you, you really shouldn't. If you're the one who's in the big chair, you should do almost nothing. But what ends up happening is people have like a player that they root for. They're like, that's our guy. Look at him executive ordering. We like that. Oh, you like a tyrant. You just like it when he's on your team. and then and then they put in like new rules to be a more effective tyrant. And then sure enough, what happens? Then the guy with the other colored T-shirt goes in, and they're like, "Can you believe that asshole using these executive powers? What a tyrant he is!" And it's like, "Oh, you liked it when it was on your side, right?" Uh, so I don't know, man. I think the whole thing is ridiculous. I think some people are waking up to that reality, but God, like, if only we had more bureaucrats with their hands in people's pockets, then we would finally be safe and happy. I need more fucking. I need more speed bumps and lines painted on the street.
Yeah.
Give me a
Yeah.
fucking break.
Well, I think there's an interesting thing that have you been following Twitter? The last couple weeks.
Uh, with great interest.
Oh, really? Okay,
With
good.
with great interest, mainly because uh, of how so many people are just like melting down at the idea of speech being a little more free.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like we want free speech as long as our guy is in charge of squelching the opposition.
right. Yeah, let's see, man. It's been a. I think I've logged into Twitter more in the last couple weeks than I have in the last 10 years, and
Same,
dude, it's
same.
just
It's really interesting to
so
see what
entertaining.
happens.
It's just pure entertainment. The and then just watching Elon, the way that he manages the masses. What the funniest thing that I find is like you have all these nobodies who haven't ever accomplished anything or have accomplished very little, sharing their opinions as if they were facts that Elon Musk has made a mistake. Uh, like, oh, he just burned $44 billion. Oh, he's gonna tank this company. I'm like, I'm sitting here thinking, have you not been following Elon's career? Because a lot of the shit that he did seemed really crazy, ridiculous. Why would anyone do that? It's not lucrative. You know, more reasons to not do what he did than the things he did. And then as you as more time goes on, I'm witnessing this tapestry of companies that he's created that all interlink and work together in different ways. And and people are viewing it through the lens of what they believe Twitter should be. Like, oh, I think Twitter should be this, or Twitter, they think Twitter is going to stay the same in some way, and don't
Mm.
realize uh, that Twitter's built a Lightning network for Bitcoin, and also has a network built to where they could basically uh, you could order your car. You can send money through Twitter, so you can order like an Uber. But
Hmm.
what might happen in 5 years is it's a self-driving Tesla that comes to pick you up. And what Elon really purchased was a user base, not
Right.
not necessarily how much revenue the company can produce, but a user base. And so, you know,
A habitual user base that gets their information from almost exclusively that source. I mean, look, CBS quit Twitter for like 3 days once they realized their engagement went to the basement. Shit like that just really that fucking makes me laugh. It makes me laugh. And it's too early to tell if it'll be a good investment or not. Not. It could be a wash 5 years from now. It could be worth less. 10 years from now, it could be worth more. It could skyrocket. But once again, all these folks opining on, oh, he's made a bad move or that all that stuff, they're not betting on that. Otherwise, they would bet on it.
yeah, yeah,
They would bet that Facebook's going to take all their market share, but they don't really know. People just want attention. Please pay attention to me. Please love me. Please respect me. Please think I'm good. It's like little children crying out for attention. And most of social media is purely that. There are only a few people who are maybe trying to really illuminate truth and somewhat indifferent to how that affects them as individuals. And I can't even think of too many off the top of my head. Um, it's mostly just for attention. People want attention.
yeah. Well, one of the things I find interesting is yeah, you mentioned it in the beginning, which is like the backlash of people on the left on Twitter just going nuts because they're basically lifting bans on like conservatives, um, and the conversation inside of Twitter is shifting rapidly because people who had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of followers are now being reinstated, and some of them are jumped right back on and started posting right away. And they even did they even did a live showing of a documentary. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I think it was the day before Thanksgiving. About what's the uh, name of that documentary? It's basically like it's it's about COVID. Um, like I think
Died suddenly.
died suddenly.
That's scary
They
stuff.
live streamed that through Twitter.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you what, 2 months ago, there's no way that would have been live streamed through Twitter. That account would have been banned immediately.
I
So,
wonder how much information we'll get about the amount of suppression that happened to various ideas over the last couple of years. Because
well,
my
I mean,
guess is it's extreme.
Elon was, he put something out. Do you want to hear, do you want to know what went into the decision making to suppress the news about Hunter Biden's laptop? And there was a
Yeah.
poll, and it was like, when I saw it, I think it was like 73-27. So
Uh,
73% of people are like, yeah, let us know what Twitter did. What
right.
were the internal memos around that? And then what I found really interesting is 27% said no. I'm like, oh, it's like someone is admitting that they don't want to know the truth. It's like, no, 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 no.
I don't want to know.
The truth is, I'd rather,
It'll hurt too much. It'll hurt too much.
it'll hurt. Yeah. Yeah. I really
Yeah.
staked a lot on that. My ego cannot handle the truth. Like it's a sign of a fragile ego, an ego that we all
Yeah.
have fragile egos to a degree. There's only so much truth that anyone can really handle at a given time. I think it's something that you develop your ability to manage when you're exposed to it. Um, but most people are so far into an illusion that just something that doesn't even necessarily affect them directly is
Mm.
is threatening. It's like, oh,
Well,
that's a very fragile ego.
and even if it does affect you directly, can you affect it directly? Is maybe even a more important
Mm-hmm.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's stuff that doesn't affect you at all. And if you think about that, it's literally mental masturbation. There's stuff that can affect you, but you can't affect it. And that's maybe a little bit better to focus on, but it's still nowhere near as good as focusing on something that you can actually influence. And so in my opinion, you really um you're only afforded the luxury of thinking about things that either don't affect you at all or affect you but you can't influence if you live in a time of plenty. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons that there's so much retarded thinking happening. It's because we live in a land of milk and honey right now. People who are allegedly poor are obese. They're dying of obesity. I mean, this is insane. Like any other animal would be like, "What are you talking about?" Like the dogs in our country are fatter than the North Korean people. This is it's insane. We live in such abundance, and that's the only reason that anyone will tolerate the level of retarded thinking going on about things that don't really matter, like race and gender and things like that of that nature, and also like forcing people to take a medical experiment or close their business or things like that. It's only when times are so good, we're living so high on the hog, that anyone will entertain that kind of thinking at all. Because if it's the Great Dust Bowl, and you're like, yeah, I'd prefer you refer to me as this, and I don't really want to do, and the person would be like, either pull the plow or shut the fuck up, because there's not enough food for all of us. like like it doesn't work. So it only works because times are really really good from a food standpoint at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah, they make it, just as you were describing that. I saw a post yesterday that the Colorado shooter. I guess that there was a shooter in Colorado. Um, Came out as non-binary. And it's that's one of those things where the the popular narrative around school shootings is white supremacy or something like this or that. But the when you bring the non-binary person in conducting a school shooting, you have to ask, like, what are the, you know, they have mental issues. Like, no one conducts a shooting that doesn't have a mental problem. And so uh, it's been historically, it's been very popular for the mainstream media to paint these shooters as right-wing extremists in some way. But anytime the news comes out that it's somebody that's got brown skin or identifies as non-binary or trans, it's I can guarantee that that news story starts getting swept under the rug pretty fast. Um, but now that Twitter's wide open, I don't know. I think that's going to change things.
Well, that's a good example of what I'm talking about. No one should give a flying fuck whether the guy was white, blue, non-binary, a he, she, a she, he, Muslim, or whatever. It's already against the law to kill people. It's already pretty. It's already like it's like already pretty fucking hateful. Like if I shoot you dead, that's bad. If I call you a cracker and then shoot you dead, is that worse? Somehow that's like a hate crime. No, no, no. But it's already so hateful to kill a guy. It doesn't make any difference if I have if
Well,
I have like a little mustache, like a little Hitler mustache or something while I do it, that doesn't make a goddamn bit of difference. So it's just another example of like people will try to twist any situation to satisfy a narrative. And once again, anytime someone gets shot, even though there's 350-ish million people in this country, it'll be like this gargantuan tragedy. And yes, it's sad when people get shot dead like a bunch at once, but what is it like in a weekend or a week in like a really dangerous area? I don't know why Detroit is always the place that comes up, but it is like pretty dangerous there. And the reality is most people kill themselves, not each other. So it just doesn't really make any sense by and large, and it's always to manipulate people into feeling a certain way rather than like what you said, which is this person was mentally disturbed. And they don't make it about that, they make it about a fight about race or sex or bigotry or or guns or what the fuck ever. And of course, it has nothing to do with those things because you could rent a U-Haul from Home Depot and drive it through a crowd and kill. I'm sure I could kill way more people that way than with any firearm. Like it's kind of a non sequitur. But once again, people are played like a fiddle, and they're like, okay, on the news today, we want you to think about this. By the way, you should be afraid of these bad guys over here. P.S. We're the good guys. So if you just kneel down and pray to us, we will protect you. And it's just wash, rinse, and repeat
yeah,
over and over again.
yeah, yeah,
So you don't want to get too bent out of shape for those things because it just distracts you from taking advantage of some of the many positive things about life today. You have space age tools. You have more ability to create wealth for yourself than any other time in history. It's crazy. You have all these advantages. So I really think um, just try to avoid getting swept into those frenzies because you know that it's deliberate.
yeah, yeah. I need to take a pee break.
All
All right, back my pee break. Did you think of anything good to say next, Max?
No, because all of this stuff we're talking about is really taking people away from the here and now. So I think it's important to circle back to that with some frequency. I know it doesn't really make for a riveting podcast, but everything we're talking about is people being pulled and pulling themselves out of the here and now, and that's the truth of what is. And it doesn't matter if you're going for a walk, if you're sitting quietly with your eyes closed. These are the kind of things that people probably need more than anything else. I mean, Twitter is kind of like crack, for example. It's useful. It's incredible that you can um, have all of these people broadcast what they're thinking in any given moment, even if it's manufactured so you feel a certain way. You get the chance to connect the dots yourself rather than here's one pipeline of information for you. And you either believe it or don't believe it. Or you read the red one or you read the blue one. It's a powerful. All these are very powerful tools, but they really do take you out of the here and now. And I think that's always what I would want to circle back to myself. And I wouldn't really recommend people do something that I wouldn't do myself either. But that's a good way to zero things out, is just get comfortable here and now, and not delude yourself into thinking that something later is going to help you finally be loved or finally feel fulfillment or anything like that. It's fun
Yeah.
to talk about, though.
Yeah.
It's fun to complete goals and do all that stuff, but like, don't kid yourself. If you don't feel whole in this moment, you're not going to suddenly be made whole with a relationship or a business or whatever. It's not to be put off until later.
Yeah, that I think about conditions that we put in place. It's like I'll consider myself to be successful when these specific conditions are met. I'll be happy when these specific conditions are met. I'll I'll get married when these certain I'll look for a partner once these certain conditions are met or whatever it is. And uh, that I don't know anybody who those conditions, even when they're met, don't just continue to shift into something else. It's like, oh, these conditions were met for happiness. Now I'm going, or success. I'm just going to move the field goal. Like I remember
Oh yeah,
in my
the goalposts move immediately.
in my 20s, it was. I remember thinking in my 20s, like my goal was to make have a 6-figure income by the time I was 30, and which is like now it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but at the time it was. I had friends that had 6-figure incomes, and they were living large compared to me. And well, especially in Memphis, Tennessee, like a 6-figure income goes about 2 or 3 times farther than it does in California or Austin. And I hit that, and immediately I one of the things that got me there was I had to surround myself with people who were more successful. And before I hit 6 figures myself, I was hanging out with people who were knocking down 7 figures. And being around those people is what taught me to get to 6 figures and 7 figures and all these things. And
right.
It's but immediately I didn't feel successful because now I'm surrounded by people who make me look like a chump. And now I got to make $1 million. I made 100,000, but shit, man, like I got to make 1 million now if I want to, feel successful. So it's these conditions we put in place that we need to watch out for because, people ask me like, oh, what allowed you to become successful or this or that, and I tell them it was like, oh, when I chose to feel successful is when I was successful. And of course, then people start thinking, oh, so if you believe you're successful, then you'll be successful. I'm like, no, 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 no. You just know that you're successful, and nothing actually, like, the mistake would be that the mistake to make in that thinking is, if I believe I'm successful, then I'll be successful. Like, the things in my external environment will shift in order for me to experience success.
Mm.
But the reality is that would also be a mistake. The thing is to recognize that you're successful in this very moment without anything needing to change at all. And when I've gotten to that point where I go, oh yeah, I'm a success, then things that other people consider to be success become more prominent in my life. But that wasn't the goal. I wasn't using that as a like manifestation technique so that I could gain more abundance. I did it because I just wanted to be successful. So it stop comparing myself to other people and saying, oh wow, from where I came from to where I am now, well, that's a lot of success. Like, good job.
Yeah, and it's funny because to be a success is like a noun, and I have that phrase, a noun is easily taken down, but you cannot disturb a verb.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems backwards to me, especially because I did the same thing with goals. I was like, if I have $1 million before I'm 30, then I'm like, then that's good, basically. And there are like milestones along the way, and of course the goalpost just constantly moves. But it's so backwards to think of it that way, because you're just getting caught in the trap of comparison.
Yeah.
And comparison is good because you can learn stuff and you can see that it's possible. Like when you hang out with folks who are in shape, you're gonna you're gonna be pulled by some form of gravity to get in better shape yourself. Unless you're like the fat comic relief for your friend group, then it might not have any effect at all.
Well, I have real world experience of this week. So I'm a member at this place called Kuya, and I 2 or 3 times a week go in there and I sauna and I cold plunge. And
Hmm.
you know, you're you may run into a Rogan guest, you may run into Bert Kreischer, a comedian, you might run into some MMA fighters, and then a lot of high level entrepreneurs and people working with plant medicine, and it's a quintessential Austin hotspot. Um, but so it's not abnormal for me to run into somebody who is just a very interesting person. But I walk into the sauna on Tuesday, and it's Thanksgiving week, so people are in town to see family, and in walks Isaiah Vidal, and he's like, "Oh, Mike." I'm like, "Oh, Isaiah, I haven't seen you in like 7 years." He was a When I met him, he was a professional obstacle course racer, and you can see the interview I did with him on the Barbell Shrug channel, and he's in there, he's in the sauna. I'm thinking, man, this guy's put on some serious muscle mass. I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, what'd you up to?" He's like, "Oh, I switched to CrossFit." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like,
There
I
you
went
go.
from professional obstacle course racer to full time CrossFit. That makes sense. You put on that much muscle, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we should grab lunch." I'm like, "Dude, I got family in town. Lunch is gonna be really hard." He goes, "Well, what about a training session?" And I immediately was like, "Yeah, man, I got a gym at my house. Come on over. We'll knock it out tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m." He's like, "All right." And then as soon as I'm walking out of the place, I'm like, I have made a mistake. This guy is 29 years old, games athlete, and and I'm gonna just the entire time I'm gonna have to like try to like pull the reins back on this workout, um, which we did.
That's funny.
Which we did. It was really really nice because I led the warm up, which introduced into some like qigong uh,
Right.
concepts that were very enlightening for him. Uh, I'm I, I'm pretty sure you're going to see him doing qigong in his warm ups. Like out there
I
now.
love it. I love it.
And he, I was like, all right, we're just going to do whatever workout. Like I haven't been training very hard. It's not like I had
Mm.
leg day yesterday. I'm kind of like just maintaining my fitness. Like I can do anything. So let's just do whatever the fuck you want to do. You're the one that's on a training regimen.
Hmm.
So we do a DT, which is like 12 deadlifts, 9 hang cleans, 6 push jerks. We did 5 rounds of that, like alternating people. And as soon as he said it, I was like, dude, you found like the one workout that I really wouldn't want to do.
Sounds awful.
Doing any conditioning work with a barbell is just not my jam anymore. I think to me the barbell is such a precision tool that can be used to really target certain areas in order to, I see it as a great tool for corrective exercise, and building like brute strength for sure, because you can pull more off of a bar than you're going to be able to off of a stone or something like that. But and I use
Does
that.
that mean does that mean you'll build more brute strength though?
What?
I don't know.
Yeah.
A barbell versus a stone. I mean, I'm the worst person to talk to about this stuff because, as you know, I'm extremely contrarian. So when I see a workout like that, that's all bilateral, front to back, sagittal plane, every with barbell,
Totally.
it just sounds like a fucking nightmare, dude. If I had a guy come into my house and he was like, "We're gonna do this," I would be like, "No."
Well, one of the things I like to do is like just um, just submit to whatever it is someone else wants to do sometimes. Uh,
I
you know,
forgot you're a sub.
unless yeah, well, unless it's going to get me hurt, right? If it's going to get me hurt, then I'm not
Right.
going to do it. But I would say my joint health and my motor patterns are the best they've ever been. So I was like, okay, I can handle one crazy workout. So we did the
Right.
workout, and dude, I had to like, I haven't done any of those movements.
Yeah.
Uh, in a while, I do deadlift, but I deadlift for like 3 reps at a time, and so we do it. I'm pretty sore right now, and I had to like strip the weight off halfway through the workout. I couldn't do the full weight because my grip just wouldn't participate. It was like I simply just came and hang on to the bar, and and it was okay. It was one of those things where uh, you know I would like try to like gut through it 10 years ago, but now I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna strip some weight off the bar, no big deal. And I found that working out with Isaiah was like really really great for me, because it really highlighted where my fitness is compared, because that workout's something I did back in my CrossFit days. It really highlighted like
Hmm.
I personally would really like to, I'm not going to be as good as I was a decade ago, but I'd like to be close to that while also being able to do all these other things. Like I think what you were alluding to is things that are a little more athletic and rotational and uh, healthier. But I should be able to, like, big training with somebody else who is way better at that thing than I am. Has pulled me. I go, okay, I could train a little harder. I've been slacking. I've been taking it easy.
Hmm.
I could be a little more uncomfortable. I mean, I think I find a lot of my discomfort more in the sauna and cold plunge these days than I do in the gym.
Hmm.
But there is something to be said for building up more discomfort in the gym.
Intensity. I think that's one of the reasons that some grappling is good, or some sort of combat. It's funny to go from obstacle course, which is about as functional as it gets, to CrossFit, which is like hardly that functional,
I
honestly.
yeah, I wonder if there's
It,
more money in CrossFit these days, just because there's more people participating in it regularly.
you could definitely coach more people at CrossFit than you could at obstacle course racing, and with less equipment. I mean, it's a funny thing. I think parkour, like soft parkour, a lot of stuff when it's taken to the extreme, it like hits this limit where it starts going from being healthy to unhealthy. Like doing a little bit of ballet is great for your legs, and doing a lot of ballet like fucks you up. The same with gymnastics.
Yeah.
Doing a little bit of gymnastics is great. Doing a lot of it fucks you up. Doing a little bit of powerlifting can be great. A lot of it fucks you up. And same with parkour. A little bit of gentle parkour, learning how to absorb and return force, run, jump, climb on shit. That's really nice, and it makes you feel young. It makes you feel a little more playful. That's probably one of the top types of athleticism that I would want to help people achieve. I mean, that's what we do at the gym still most of the time. We move around.
Yeah. Yeah. I typically try to do the Spartan race once a year, just as a
Yeah.
check-in, because it is such a functional thing. I
Yeah.
looked up so you were talking about verbing versus nouning,
Mm.
and in regard to success, and I was thinking about what's the verb of success.
Flow,
Well, I was thinking
acceptance.
successive, right? There's
Oh,
you
interesting.
throw
Is that a verb?
you throw IVE on the end, and I looked up the Merriam-Webster definition, and successive, following in order, following each other without interruption.
Mm.
Characterized by or produced in succession. So successive is their fourth successive victory, as an example, but that would be an adjective.
Yeah, I think succeeding is probably about the closest you could get to a verb with that.
Well, successively is an adverb.
Right.
Successiveness is the noun. Interesting. So
But if you think
what did
about
you say?
like
Success? What? Succeeding?
uh succeeding,
Yeah,
but I
succeeding.
I think um I think
That is more accurate.
keeping more with the spirit of what we're trying to say than with the letter of that specific word. Like the reason you want to be a success is because you want to be accepted or loved or something based on a constant state. So it's sort of like an ego trip where you're like, if I get this, then my avatar will be good and someone will love me. Same with bumpy stomach muscles and all that other shit. Big bank accounts, bumpy stomach, Ferraris, and glittery tits, all that good stuff. But
Well, I like the
if you think about
succeeding. The statement. We're talking about identity, and people are using the mantra "I am successful" or "I am a success."
Mhm.
I really like "I am succeeding" is a much better mantra than either one of those,
Right.
because if
Totally.
I wake up in the morning and I say to myself, "I am a success," to me that feels like I am talking about everything I've done up until this moment. Whereas if I say
Right.
I am succeeding, it brings me into this present moment, and I think, well, if I'm succeeding, what does that person do who is continually
Yeah.
succeeding? And then we get in the word of succession or successive,
Mhm.
and you go, okay, someone who is succeeding is consistently making, I guess you could call it, progress towards whatever it is they're working towards.
Right.
But if I wake up in the morning and say I am succeeding, I'm probably going to go down into my gym and do a little bit of movement, breath work out, and then hop on and write some copy, write some emails, and really knock some stuff out. And because I am succeeding, but I could wake up another morning and say I am successful and go, I arrived. I'm just going to sit back on my laurels and kick it until you know. So I think that I think the value of verbing versus nouning is a great thing, especially when it comes to identity, because a fluid identity is the most useful.
Right. Yeah, it's just like you don't want to like believe your shit doesn't stink. You don't want to get too wrapped up into the belief that I can do no wrong.
Yeah,
So, it's the same kind of idea, and when we're saying succeeding versus a success, to be a success, it basically just means you succeeded. So it's about the past. So it's the difference between creating, which is now, and created, which was back then.
Yeah.
So I always think about it in terms of, if you're doing what you want, then you're successful. The whole idea that um, like money becomes the goal rather than money becomes the tool for the goal is a real problem. It's like when people say um, money is the root of all evil. That's not how it goes. It's a love of money is the root of all evil. So if you just love money because it's money, that's fucked up. But if you love what you love and you realize that money is a tool to help expand your potential, then it's totally good. It just allows us to make trade a little bit easier, all kinds of good stuff. So I think about it in terms of, if you're in flow where your identity is irrelevant, that's really the ultimate, and that's what I try to get close to um, as best I can, whether I'm sitting in a chair or exercising or talking with somebody, rather than trying to prop up some caricature that I've built on past successes. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's way more comfortable to to do that than to
to,
need to take action right now.
well, it's like about letting go, I guess. You let go of this idea that you have to do something a certain way, and then once the dust settles, you're going to want to do something. You just have to not stuff a pacifier in your mouth in the meantime that squelches that creativity, whether that's, in the form of like literal food, or, TikToks or whatever. You just have to kind of wait it out, because um, there's always going to be something that gets you to, like, go back into movement again, even if it is just wiggling your joints a little bit. So, hmm, I don't know. The distinctions that we make to prop ourselves up and exalt ourselves above other people is really just a different type of a trap.
Yeah, I mean, it's driven by insecurity. Like I
Right.
don't feel. I had this great conversation with my friend Alex the other day, and uh, people people are constantly looking for validation, and and it's a common term in psychotherapy as well. It's like, okay, we got to valid for someone to be receptive to a suggestion. Then a lot of times they need to calm the ego down by validating their experience, even if their interpretation of the experience is inaccurate.
Right.
It's a great tool to get someone to calm down. And the pro move is the two big things that I've noticed that have been themes this week. Is the pro move is living a life where you don't need validation from anyone outside of yourself to feel like you're good enough. Um, I don't need someone to think that I'm funny or successful, or I don't need for people to believe that I'm happy for me to be able to experience happiness. These are all experiences I get to give myself, and if you're living in that place, then that's how insecurities are showing up, is in that need for validation, and the need for validation is
Mm.
rarely sexy, uh, unless and
Please love me. Is this good enough for you, Daddy?
exactly. So like the this my invitation to everyone listening is uh, you're the only one that can really give you the satisfying validation. So stop looking at it from other people. And the second thing is that I've been really focused on lately is watching, and these two things go hand in hand, is watching people fight to feel heard and understood. and they want to feel heard and understood because they want to be validated. But the pro move on this is to under for you to understand that nobody can ever understand your full life experience. No one's ever going to be able to.
Mm.
We don't have our language is so limiting in our ability to communicate what our experience is. And I think it's really sad that people are walking around feeling as though and behaving as though if they're not, if somebody doesn't understand their experience, then the person outside of themselves is bad or isn't listening. And I'm here to assure everybody that no matter how hard somebody listens, they're not actually going to understand you. And so if you can accept that, then that's going to create an enormous amount of freedom because I'm the only one that needs to understand me. I'm the only one that can validate me. I don't need to get that from outside of myself. And if you start living that way, people will start coming up to you and asking, what are you doing different? Like, you seem so free. You seem so whatever. And I've seen this time and time again with people who adopted this way of thinking. And in my own life is people are, you know, they want to know what I did. And if I got something to sell, they're going to buy it. And I've got, and and I'm not always living from that place. The need for validation and the desire to be understood creeps in, and that's when life becomes difficult. Is if I'm starting to meet resistance in the world, it's usually because I'm seeking validation or wanting to be understood, and then I remind myself, I go, oh, there's no one's ever going to understand you, Mike. You're going to die alone, and if dying alone sounds sad to you, then that's also a really great thing to work through because you may die alone. You probably will, and and if you can be happy with that as the result, then that's also helpful. But I think that all ties in together. Is like, oh, when I die, that experience of death, I'm not going to be able to share that with anybody. So even then, the ultimate experience is not going to be understood or shared by anybody. It's only for me to experience, and it's my experience, and I get to experience that, not for anybody else. So, yeah, uh, that's my invitation to people is if they can adopt those ideas, that their life will become more peaceful.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. You said we're all going to die alone? Jesus fucking Christ. Sorry, I didn't understand you there, buddy. No, I'm just joking. I'm only joking, of course. It
I
is
don't feel
funny.
validated. I
Yeah.
I don't feel heard and understood, and now I'm going to hold a grudge against you, Max.
Well, good luck. They're I, grudges are heavy. I don't have to carry it, so
Yeah,
uh, you pick up whatever big rock you want to carry with you in this life, brother. If you have some resentment toward me, I assure you, it weighs nothing on my end.
that's such a demonstration of a pro move because when someone's holding a grudge or resenting somebody else, a lot of times the person that the grudge is being held against or resentment, they either take it on unnecessarily, as like, oh, this person resents me or whatever, and then now they feel bad. But I think most people don't even know, and that goes back to the understanding. Is like, I can't actually understand if you resent me, I can't understand the resentment. So like, for me to be consumed by that or be bothered by it is kind of silly. Not kind of silly. It's very
I mean,
silly.
yeah, I mean, there are people that I have disliked in my life, but I don't even want those people to hold on to resentment or hatred or regret or anything like that. Ultimately, uh, like you said, no one knows your experience the way you do. No one experiences life exactly the same way you do. Everybody's life is so individual. There's even a word for it called sonder, which is the realization that everyone else has a life that is as intricate and complex as your own.
Where's that come from?
Sonder. It might be a German word. I wrote a blog about it at some
Sonder.
point.
I
Sonder.
love that because
Yeah.
that's such a simple way to condense that idea.
Yeah. I know brevity is not your thing, but I still like the way it sounds when you say it.
You don't think brevity is my thing? What are you talking about?
Oh wait, hold on. Let me put in. I'll sit for 5 minutes so you can explain it to me how brevity is your thing.
Hey, hey.
Look, this wouldn't work without you. Brevity is really bad for podcasting. Hey, welcome back to another Mac show. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. It's going to be a fucking doozy. Hey, did you remember to be here and now? Now go for a fucking walk. See you next week. Just a fucking absolute horrible show.
I mean, if brevity were a thing, I'd be great at Instagram and terrible at podcasting. But it's the
Yeah.
other way around.
Well,
So
you know, um, fancy, long-winded stuff is usually not true, but when things are put really simple, it's usually ignored. It's kind of like the Tao in that
people
in
need
that way,
you got to make it pretty.
right?
Put little
Um,
roses around it. Make it attractive.
you got to doll it up. You got to take me on a journey. You got to hypnotize me with a fun experience with ups and downs and twists and turns. And that's what people like. They like the drama. It's all about the drama of it all. So if you can extricate yourself from the drama, be here and now, become the task, become the verb, you will feel not enlightened as a state. You won't be like, yes, finally, I am enlightened, which is the exact fucking opposite of
Well, the
enlightenment,
moment you
right?
start saying that,
Right.
you
It's like
you
the
you just
least
fell
enlightened
out.
thing you
Yeah.
can say. Yeah, exactly. But you can be enlightened in terms of like as a process, you have been made lighter. So, same with exercise, same with the beliefs that you hold. You can lighten the load of what you're carrying with you all the time. And then it allows for that better flow of energy because there is some kind of source energy. Call it the Tao if you like, call it God, call it baby Jesus or Buddha or uh, Mohammed or whatever. But there's some source energy, and the more that you are an open conduit for it, the better it all works out for you. So the less you can encumber yourself with all of these unnecessary weights, the easier it will feel. And then coincidentally, you will create more and you will be able to create more value for other people. And then that will make you more financially well off, which is usually what people mean when they say successful, right?
Right.
They just mean you have lots of money. And that's just relative to the people that you're around.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you want to feel successful, just don't spend more than you make, and then you'll feel successful.
You'll at least feel balanced from an energetic standpoint. I mean, it's like a debt is like financial obesity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are consuming more than you're creating, and
Mm-hmm.
there's an energy problem. Nature doesn't like that. Nature actually, forget doesn't like it. Nature's indifferent. It doesn't allow that. Like that is not
Yeah.
an option
The
naturally.
lie will last only for so long before it's corrected.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's how empires fall,
Yeah.
devaluing currencies and things like that. We're going to mortgage the future for the present. And everyone's like, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. People are incredibly optimistic about the future. Even the skeptics. Like,
You have to be, though. Otherwise, you would do nothing. So it is about finding that balance and not putting the cart before the horse. It's good to be able to reverse engineer like, oh, I'm a cabinet maker. If it costs me this much to make a cabinet and I make 10 cabinets, then I can earn X amount per whatever. But the point is to make sure that you enjoy making the cabinets first. And if you start out by not spending on frivolous luxuries and just enjoying the simple things, like if you can go take a walk and have a chat with a friend or just go play with a friend, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. Throw a frisbee, hit a ball back and forth. If you think there's going to be some like pot of gold at the end of a rainbow that's going to be way better than that, you're just deluding yourself. So you might as well have fun and learn a few things. That's what makes the whole experience very interesting. One of my favorite books, Illusions, um, talks about that. Everything comes back to like, why do you do that? Oh, for fun or to learn. Simple as that. And learning is fun. So it's really, do what you like. If you want to buy a skyscraper, buy a fucking skyscraper. If you want to buy the New York Jets, buy the New York Jets. You can do it. Have fun with it. But don't do that just because you think then you'll be enough. For God's sake, that's like like carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so like it's about um, starting by really appreciating and enjoying and being grateful for those simple things, and then you have a foundation that you can really build upon.
Well said. Want to wrap it up?
Yeah, wrap it.
Wrap it. Again, we went all over the place, which I love. We had the Thanksgiving recap, but I think this all flowed together, and understanding ourselves a little bit better and understanding our relationships to others and the pitfalls that come along with that in our development, and how we can live life a little more peaceful even when those around us are projecting on us. So that's the pro. I think there was a lot of pro move ideas brought to this that if people put in place, they're gonna experience more peace in their life.
Right. Um, I had fun. Thanks, Mike. Thanks everybody for listening.
Perfect.
Love you guys. MaxShank.com. Later.
Later.